Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Why Mental Fitness is Important for Your Overall Health. My name is Christina, and on behalf of myosh, I am excited to have you all here today as we explore this critical topic. We are so very fortunate to have Dr. Natalie Flatt from Connect Psych Services with us here today. Nat is an absolute expert in mental health and resilience, and she'll be guiding us through the concept of mental fitness, what it means, why it's essential for both our personal and professional lives, and how we can strengthen it. Throughout this session, you'll learn about the three key components of mental fitness and some practical strategies to build it into your daily routine. Now, we would love for this webinar to be as interactive as possible, so I encourage everybody to participate. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box in the Q&A section as we go along, and we'll address as many of those questions as possible throughout the session. Your thoughts and experiences are absolutely invaluable to this conversation, so don't hold back. Now, with that, I'd like to hand over to the amazing Natalie. Again, thank you all for being here. Let's dive in.
Thanks, Christina. No, it's a really good topic, and it's all about proactivity in the last quarter of the year. You know, we all do get tired. We just do. September hits. We've got a change in season coming. Some people, they feel like they can start to see the end of the line, but then at the same time, it's exceptionally busy. So it's a really good time to check in on our mental health and just making sure that we're keeping ahead of the goals. So this is what this topic's about. So look, let's start off with a bit of a couple of definitions, Christina, here. So what is mental fitness? Now, mental fitness, it actually refers to the state of having a healthy and resilient mind. So capable with coping with some challenges and managing our stress, and also then maintaining that positive outlook on life. And that's, you know, both life and work. You know, just as physical fitness strengthens and conditions our body and provides us that muscle memory, mental fitness also involves the practices and the habits that keep in mind, you know, our mind in good shape. So it really encompasses various aspects of mental well-being, which we'll get into around cognitive flexibility, emotion regulation, resilience, which also includes a lot of problem solving and mindfulness, and that ability to maintain, you know, focus and clarity under those pressured times. So why does it matter? Now, we look at, you know, firstly, I think it's around, you know, that stress management. You know, we're able to, mental fitness it helps individuals cope with stress more effectively. So it reduces our risk of burnout and other stress-related issues. So more often than not, we see a mentally fit person, you know, they don't become overwhelmed with situations that more often could make a lot of individuals overwhelmed, and they can maintain that sense of control. Because we can actually have that control across our stress, it will then contribute to a better balance of our emotions, and enables us to really kind of navigate our life's ups and downs, because that's what life's about. It's about unpredictable and predictable life events, and being able to do this with a better flow and greater ease. So that reduces our likelihood of anxiety and depression and any other mental health challenges that can come our way because of those life event changes. It really improves our focus and our productivity. So because we're able to keep, again, that stress at bay, we're being able to continually have our blood flow, you know, pumped at the prefrontal cortex, you know, looking at that executive functioning. And because we have more, you know, that clarity there, it really hones in on better and, you know, maintaining attention and focus and our productivity. Also then being able to make some clearer decisions and allow us to solve problems more efficiently. We do look at resilience. So resilience is, you know, which we'll talk about in our chat. But it really we want to be able to strengthen our resilience to allow, you know, those times where we do need to bounce back from those setbacks, and then adapt to those changes, because sometimes we know when we do bounce back, we're always not going to bounce back in exactly the same spot where we kind of launch from, and being able to then thrive in the face of those challenges, and that's really crucial resilience, you know, for long-term success along with personal growth. You know, from a relationship perspective, mental fitness really matters here, because it can actually enhance our emotional intelligence. So really leading to healthier and more fulfilling relationships. And when we say emotional intelligence, it's around our social awareness as well as our self-awareness as well as our social awareness. So And this helps us in effective communication, along with empathy and conflict resolution. But overall well-being, just as physical fitness supports our overall health, mental fitness contributes to a higher quality of life. So it can promote a balanced lifestyle, so better sleep and a greater sense of purpose and satisfaction. And that's just really, again, with us, Christina, as well, because the benefits in the workplace, it's really critical to try and create that mentally fit workplace, because it can really maintain a productive and positive work environment. So that's going to lead to greater psychological safety, but it empowers employees to handle and manage stress, but also place them in positions to allow for growth mindset. So really be able to look at challenges more so as opportunities, and then adapt to those changes when they do occur, which we do see a lot in workplaces over the last couple of years around a lot about change, but also just to collaborate more effectively. So being able to maintain a high level of perspective and empathy towards other workers and colleagues and teams, and that's going to lead to greater innovation and creativity.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to learning from other members of your staff or colleagues or whatever. I know for example, the other week I mentioned to somebody about how I was talking to somebody and they were so lively and happy and exciting, and then something changed and they immediately went really quiet and really, I don't want to say boring, but they were very very sort of, they retreated within themselves a little bit. And I mentioned that to somebody afterwards and they said, well, maybe they were just shy, or maybe they were just a little bit nervous. And I thought to myself, gosh, I didn't even think about that. Like, I just thought about how I would be in that situation, and I didn't think how they might be in that situation. And it took that one person to say to me, maybe they were nervous, for me to go, oh, Jesus, you do need to remember, and it's a constant learning curve to remember to think outside of yourself and to think, I'm self-aware enough now to realize that my thoughts aren't what's being projected or isn't what's being perceived by the other person. And so I think this isn't only going to be timely for myself, but for so many other people, to remember that what's being perceived by yourself is not what's being put out into the world by the other person.
Yes, absolutely. And you're so right in saying that this is a learning curve for you, and it's a continual way of practicing and training.
Yeah.
And there's so many facets, and there's going to be a lot essentially to cover today. But if you can start with even one of the pillars.
I was going to say, what are the 3 pillars of mental fitness?
Yeah, so look, the 3 pillars here we've got, and these are the ones I really find that shine the beacon, is around cognitive flexibility. So really adapting to those new situations, and having that ability to shift your thinking and perspectives or challenges. So it involves being really open-minded and being creative and able to adjust your mental processes to meet the demands of changing circumstances. And really why this matters, it's around adaptability. So that cognitive flexibility allows you to adjust to changes in your environment, to be able to navigate easier, and especially when things that are new or unexpected occurs. So
Change is scary.
It is really scary, and we can really dig our heels in at times, because like, I'm not changing. No, this is the way I like it. Because more often than not, we don't love change. And we want to stay in the familiar zone, because that actually it calms us. So it's not an easy thing to becoming cognitive flexible. It's not something we just do overnight. It's going to require a little bit of that practice. Kind of like, I always say with physical fitness, there's not many people out there that can put on a pair of runners and go, right, I'm just going to run 42K, I'm going to run a marathon, without actually having appropriate training. Think of the same thing as mental fitness as well.
I did that once. It was a half marathon, and my girlfriend and I just on a whim went, okay, let's sign up for it. And we did it. We decided to train one day in the lead up And let me tell you, I was broken for about 6 months afterwards and walked the majority of the way. So you're correct. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, had resilience though to do it. So I'll get back to that
Oh,
because that's and have you ever done another one?
no,
Okay, so that obviously then traumatized you. We'll get back to that. That's
absolutely it did.
something we can talk about. But
Perhaps I'll book a session in.
So it's so good because even with that cognitive flexibility, that's where we can actually find the creativity and the innovation, because sometimes when we are placed into a new environment, it gives us a different way of thinking. And that's where we can actually have a look at it from a different angle, how we might be able to solve that problem. And that's where that creativity and innovation can come from. And really, the irony about the cognitive flexibility is it actually does reduce our stress levels when we are able to start to build and create that flow rather than being stuck in our own ways, having with our own habits and not wanting to move out of our small, our circle that we've created all our familiarity and our comfort around. So, once we can break through that and then work through flow, it will reduce our stress and allowing us to view those challenges and opportunities for growth rather than threats.
Definitely.
So that's cognitive flexibility. The second pillar really is the emotion regulation, which is the ability to manage and respond to our emotions in a more healthy and constructive way. And so this involves recognizing and understanding our emotions and controlling those impulsive reactions, which, look, again, personally, it's sometimes really difficult to do. So it requires a lot of practice, and when we're talking even about controlling impulsive reactions, we've done a lot over the years around emails, and when we can get maybe a curt email or something that has been written emotionally, we're feeling like we need to kind of fire back quite quickly again, mirroring that emotional response where we know that you can walk away and you can take a couple of minutes, go get a cup of tea or write a draft, have a bit of a think about it, the next day maybe send it. Something similar to that is that's how we can start to control our impulsive reactions to different situations. And that then allows us just having that gap or that pause to choose appropriate ways to express and then act on our feelings. So why this one matters, it's a lot of stress reduction. So our emotion regulation will help us maintain that fight or flight response. So from a physiological perspective, we get back into our green zone of stress, which I like to call it, far quicker rather than staying in the orange and the red and then, being stuck within there. So we're able to regulate back to our good state of stress, which is where we really, at least 80% of the time would like to be. And we have those improved relationships. But that's obvious because, people want to come and ask us questions, and we've got a better way of communicating. We don't nitpick at conflict, and we reduce those conflicts, and we can start to build more of those healthier relationships there. But
I find you also respond better to the people that send a curt email, or you receive an email that you might have usually perceived as something like being stressful and rude and horrible to you. You receive it better if you're in a better state.
Absolutely. Yes, that's very true. And when we're continually in that fight or flight mode, we see everything as a threat. So sometimes we can even read it wrong. And then if we respond in a way that we have perceived that we have read it, that can also then create more conflict. So being able, when we can, regulate ourselves and be in a calmer way, it's exactly what you said. You're going to actually be able to perceive that in a calmer manner, but then also then be able to have better decision making. So when your emotions are regulated, you're less likely to make those impulsive decisions.
Absolutely.
Clearly and rationally. And then the third pillar we'll talk about today is the resilience. So that's the ability to recover from difficulties and then adapting to change and keeping and essentially just to keep going in the face of adversity, even if we're in it. Not just about surviving those challenges, but it's then thriving and growing stronger as a result. So this level of here, you can see that resilience, the actual definition is to bounce back from adversity, but I like to actually bring that element of endurance in, because we want to see ourselves being able to do it. It's like, we've grown from this. How can we learn? Because adversity is always going to come our way. There are always going to be difficult challenges and situations. That is life, whether it's predictable or unpredictable. And
Absolutely.
why this matters is it allows us to to overcome those challenges without feeling defeated. It sets us up for long-term success. And again, it's linked again to lower levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. So
It's what everybody wants, needs, and strives for, isn't it? So let's start with cognitive flexibility. How can we enhance this pillar?
yeah. So look, let's start with practicing, because it's all about practicing. Now, if you can look at these, how many have I got here? 8, can't count. I think there's about 8 here. Take two, and
Yeah,
see what
start small.
Yeah, start small and see if you can start to build this into your daily routine, and even just being really conscious that you're building it into it. Again, what we're trying to do is start to create a muscle around this.
I was going to say, you've said something that just triggered what I wanted to say earlier. You said the word conscious. All of these things are going to take energy, and they're going to take a lot of time to build up to become subconscious. And that's where I'm assuming we want to get to with a lot of these things, is to make them our subconscious reaction rather than making them an effort and taking up energy.
That's exactly it. That is, and yes, it does take that energy to do these things. And I think that, but the energy that you put into it actually gives the energy that you get out of that is tenfold, it's 100-fold, because it's kind of like, what's that thing with the moment on the lips, lifetime on the hips?
Oh,
I don't know where that one just came from. There you go. There's my random brain for today. But
it's preparing to go. It's making that split decision to stay in bed that little bit longer and not go to the gym.
Exactly.
Or it's going to the gym and feeling the intense, amazing feelings after the gym.
So that's where how do I feel now? How do I feel after? So
yeah, do we put the hard yards in now, or do we,
put it in, and once the hard yards start, you're putting it in and you're creating these habits, the habits then become easier because they've become embedded within you. So take the things, I always say that I'm not going to resonate 100% of the things that I say is not going to resonate with every single person. That's not the aim of it. And say, take 1 or 2 things away, build them into your lifestyle, and then it becomes a bit of a ripple effect there. So let's look at the perspective taking, because I like this one. It's if we can regularly challenge ourselves to view situations from different perspectives, just like the example you provided before, what this will start to involve is considering the different viewpoints of others, especially when they differ from your own. So you can see this as really connected to our unconscious bias as well. So this is something that, again, if you be conscious, if you write it down, if you walk away, if you process things, even asking someone else about how was I in that meeting that might have had, in a workplace where we had maybe multi-generations in the workplace with very different perspectives, what was the reaction to that? So, and that's okay that I might be here as a Gen X, but, a Gen Z's come in and they've said this thing that's really left field. I'm trying to kind of understand where they came from. Yep, I can understand why they came from that, where they've kind of come from. These are, some of them are COVID students, dare I say. They may have come from a different way of looking at something. I'm not going to challenge that. I'm just going to accept that that's what their views are, and does that then integrate with mine, or can that get closer? Again, that was just a very crude example. But that's what we actually then start to see, especially in meetings, is that like allowing people to bring their own perspective is going to be able to start to enhance your own flexibility there.
and try to control our faces when we want to roll our eyes, or when we want to go, or just make all the different faces. You just need to try and practice not making any faces.
Exactly. And like have something else in your hand, maybe that you might squeeze, think that might actually ignite something within you, because you may not have been brought up that way.
Exactly.
That's where you're starting to create that flexibility of thinking. But then there's a flexibility of experiences. So trying to expose yourself to new and diverse experiences, it really broadens your cultural thinking, and it makes it easier to adapt to new situations. So this could incorporate a new skill, or traveling to a place that you may not have been on your map of places to go, or even trying different hobbies and meeting new people in that area. So
Just saying yes to something you'd usually say no to.
exactly,
Yeah,
and because you never know what's behind that door.
never.
So just again, starting small. We talk a lot about mindfulness and meditation, and really that those practices, and it can be modern mindfulness. So essentially, it's just being in the present. And even if that is something that you can incorporate 5 minutes a day, and now whether that's having your cuppa in the morning, to going for a walk and grabbing a leaf and really incorporating your five senses, it's what we're trying to do is just bring everyone back to the present and just being aware of your thoughts and emotions. And this is it's really quite powerful, because you'll start to see the trends in what you may be stuck in, or if you're here, you're saying the same self-talk in certain situations to you. And it's a great way. We need to be aware before we can take action. So those mindfulness practice can be really a great way to start. And again, it's not supposed to be there, stand there for an hour and, yoga session. I know that we've still got those bias around that. It can literally be a 5 minute incorporating all our five senses and seeing where that actually takes us to get us to learn a little bit more about ourselves. Challenging our own assumptions, so really starting to swallow that pill. It can be hard, but even trying to find one thing. It's like, if I'm using judgment here, and if I'm using my opinion, I have to say, stop. What am I missing here? What am I assuming that may or may not be occurring? And the more we can actually do this and engage activities like, say, even debating or playing even devil's advocate with ourselves and others, can help you become more flexible in your thinking there. Our brain actually really likes to learn continuously. We need this, and we see this again in
How we survive.
Exactly. And we see it in the aging population, with dementia, with growing older, that we especially once we retire, is that we're not using our brain as actively as we once did. And so that's something that I think is a life skill, isn't it? Continually being able to be, learning new things. And again, this can involve taking up a language, or playing even strategy games, or engaging in activities that require some critical thinking there. So there's heaps of board games, being able to do that. I sit down every Monday night with my 8 and 10-year-old who just love Boggle. And I love playing Boggle as well, because I'm like, oh, this is so great. I wouldn't have thought of that word for a while. And, teaching, and they're finding words that I wouldn't have thought of. And I don't know, it's a great connector as well. But sometimes I feel like I might need a bit of the brain shift too. So things like that can be a lot of fun. Even like, where's Wally? Looking for, just being able to have that level of disengagement and finding, different aspects, not maybe Wally, but, the donkey that should be a horse and whatnot.
I was going to say, I have a 2.5-year-old, and I am constantly on the go, constantly doing all the things, thinking of everything, working, doing everything. And she's into coloring and drawing and all the things, and painting. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to buy my own coloring books. And I sit with her and I color in my stuff and she colors in her stuff. And I just get so lost in the moment. And it just disengages you from everything. And it's exactly what you're just saying. And it's also goes to the next one, breaking routine, but it's just getting back, grounding yourself and getting away from the stimulation and all the other things as well.
That's a beautiful modern mindfulness as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's beautiful, but that's that diffuse thinking that we sometimes need, along with the micro moments, or having a break, because we want to be able to disrupt those automatic patterns of thinking when we become so focused in our thinking. And then if we have the ability where we can just walk away, or take a different route to work, or trying a new food, or even that bit of that feng shui, like rearranging your workspace, it can actually really help give a different way of looking at something in perspective, but also just give your brain a bit of a rest as well. So loving those micro moments and the neuropsychology behind those.
I'm sure everyone's the same. Once my desk is clean, or if it's cluttered and I declutter it, or if I drive a different route to work, I'm more focused and I'm more aware of what's going on. I'm not just going through the motions, and I'm able to absorb more and take more in. And that helps tenfold at work. So I don't know if anyone's the same as me, but decluttering your desk and just changing things up a little bit just improves so much.
You're so right. Like, I'll just take, if I'm working in the city, not to just to get on at Parliament, like, to walk to Flinders Street, just to be able to have that change. And I put my phone away and I look around and, being able to, especially if it's, say it's dusk and, what are the church bells doing, what color of the light is it. It's amazing, like, how that can really just provide you that added extra element of energy, but also how it then creates that set of calms. Like, our brain needs that.
Yes.
And so the second last one is really looking at embracing ambiguity. So getting comfortable with uncertainty, and deliberately placing yourself in situations where the outcome is not clear. And what this does, it builds your ability to adapt and adjust your thinking, because then that's obviously you're going to have to use that problem solving. So that's a big challenge. Have a think about what situation might actually bring that up, and see if you can have that confidence to be able to place yourself in there.
But then at the end of that, you're going to find out that you can do something you never thought you could.
That's exactly it. How do we know if we don't know?
Exactly. Nothing changes if nothing changes, does it?
Exactly. And the last one is that, I suppose, practice problem solving. Now, this is, this activity that requires strategic thinking, such as puzzles and chess, and other games that can challenge our ability to think in multiple ways. Now, if you can incorporate these practices in your daily life, you're going to be able to, enhance that cognitive flexibility. And that's a lot of fun, because I like that one, because we can do that, with family members, or we can set up games rooms within the workplaces, which we find it's a great way from a design thinking perspective too. I think that it just gives us a break from our phones. So try and steer away from the chess on the phone. Try and actually get a good old-fashioned chessboard, good old-fashioned piece of puzzles working. Have that feeling.
I went and bought a Kindle rather than reading it just on my phone, and it's set in black and white mode, and it has honestly done the world's most wonderful things to my mental health, because I'm off my phone and I'm immersed in this other thing. And it may still be a screen, but it's not the same, I don't think, because there's nothing else notifying me about anything else that's going on. I can't get distracted. It's just me and the book, essentially. And you're 100% right. Before we go on to the next slide, I know we're probably spending a little bit too much time on this one, but I love the idea of only picking one or two of these, because like myself, I get so overwhelmed and I want to do an aspect of everything, but I know it won't stick unless I tick one box off, and I'm like, go one by one. Otherwise you just get overwhelmed, you get decision fatigue, and you just can't commit, can you? And it's just taking each day as it comes, try and tick one off or tick two off each day, and try and get that 1% better every day, I think.
100%. Look, we're off at we're off overseas on a family holiday soon, and we're heading over to Vietnam, and one thing that I've always wanted to do, is take a photography course. And I thought, do I just do that by myself, or do I do that, with my family? I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to go and do that by myself.
Good.
Go and learn that, and it's going to be half a day, and there's little things, because I never would have done that by myself. So I know that, I'm really excited that I've actually made that decision, that is that's what I want to do. And it doesn't take much. I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that, it's just usually that first step. It's probably just putting the runners on before you go to train for a marathon. Let's put the runners on there.
Oh, all right. So next up we have emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Now, what would you do to enhance this one?
So again, it comes back, you'll see the connection through probably all the pillars is around that mindfulness and being able just to help you stay in that present, and be aware of your emotions, because that is what emotional regulation is really about. If you can't, mindfulness in this area is it kind of like, it's a little bit of that self-check-in that we need to understand, what's going on. And even when we are being mindful, even if you try and do this throughout the day, or something that's starting to make you feel overwhelmed or stressed, you can then start to hear yourself. You're giving yourself permission to hear, and to And once we can then start, what we're trying to do is we're moving then into the affect labeling pieces. We're trying to be able to label our emotions, like what is going on in certain situations that are making us feel this way, and then consequently act in a way that we're aiming to change. So, and this is where we can start to use the affect labeling. And affect labeling is like the expression of emotion, and it's being able for humans to start to expand their emotional vocabulary. So, has anyone? I don't know if anyone on the call has seen Inside Out. I'm sure with Emily, you've probably seen Inside Out, and we can't always be joy, right? I mean, they've got like the first movie. You haven't seen the second movie, I have to say, but the first movie is all about the core emotions, right? And it's so important that we do need to move in and out of certain emotions. Now, I think the second movie, from what my boys said, is, you know, that starts to expand on those emotions, which we do see, especially as our brain grows and we move into teenage years. And then all of a sudden, you know, we kind of can find ourselves in situations where we're going back to those only core emotions, where I just feel angry, just feel irritated. You know, I'm just annoyed. I'm happy. You know, I'm just sad. It's like, well, what's under that? And so when I always talk about affect labeling, and I love my boys, so you probably hear them a lot, but and when they used to come home from school, it was like, oh, how was your day? Good. What'd you do? Nothing. Who'd you play with? No one. I'm like, good. I got a really good outcome of how you are right now. And so I said, look, you know what? Good. The word good is not a description for your emotion. We're taking the word good out. So it's no good in this house, right? So we got our Putnick's wheel of emotion, which is allowing you to expand on what you feel. And they come home now, and this has been quite a while that they've been in this involvement. And they said, oh, you know, today, I said, how'd you feel? You know, today I felt really excited. Tell me why you felt really excited. Well, in maths, we did this, and I got an award. You know, it made me feel really proud. Okay, well, this is great, because what they're doing is they're expressing how they feel. So it enhances your conversational skills, right? But most of all, it's telling your brain to say, I'm acting in a way because this is the only way I know how to act, because it's fight or flight. So it's run away, anxiety, fear, or stay and be angry and, you know, fight your way through this. So it's Neanderthal, because that's what we had to survive and to still be technically at the top of the food chain. It's a very archaic kind of piece of our brain that still allows us that survival mode. So it tells us when we are in a threatening or dangerous situation. But the way we see threatening and dangerous situations now is very different to back in the caveman days.
Absolutely.
So what we want to do is that if we can tell our brain, you know what, actually, I'm actually feeling really overwhelmed right now. So rather than you have
responding to that email, or
you told your brain, oh, I'm feeling like this. And what it actually ends up doing is it switches the adrenal down and turns it off, and then allows the blood flow back to the prefrontal cortex, where your emotion regulation piece lies. So that's what's so important about that affect labeling, is that the emotion telling your brain, that switches it off, finds a way that we can of what we can actually do. And that's what then leads into that cognitive reappraisal. So being able to reframe our negative thoughts into a more of a positive or neutral light. And what this does, it can reduce our intensity of our emotional reactions. Like, you know, does this situation warrant me screaming? You know, how else could I actually manage this? So it allows us just to think about, because when we get really overwhelmed, or when we become very negative or set in our ways, we will start to have some very finite self-talk. Like, this always happens to me. I never get it right.
Almost like a victim mentality.
Yes, it is. So we can go into very catastrophic thinking, right? And more often than not, that's not going to happen. I did a lot of work in my PhD with phobias, where as soon as, you know, kids saw a dog, the dog's going to bite me. The dog's going to,
worst case scenario. Yeah.
Case scenario, right. So what we want to do is we want to pause and say, is that really going to happen? Does that really, is that what they really mean? Okay. How else could I see this situation right now? How else could I say this to myself? Oh, The dog's running towards because they want to play, not because the dog wants to attack me.
Mm.
There's a very low chance of a dog attacking me. So there's those kind of, it has that opportunity that we have to try in that moment, or not even try in that moment, but even post that moment, or before that moment, to think about how we actually act in certain situations, and next time we're placed in that situation,
Flip
what
the
else
script.
do? Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we look at those breathing. Now, breathing plays a really important part in all this, because what we do is when we get really overwhelmed or the fight or flight starts to kick in, more often than not, the reason why it's kicked in is because of our shallow breathing. Okay, so we
Lack of oxygen.
lack of oxygen. So once we get the imbalance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our body, that again sends a signal to our brain to say, hey, something's not right here. So the easiest way that we can what we want to do is regulate our breath. There are so many breathing techniques out there. I like the 4-7-8 technique. So it's breathe in, hold, out.
I love the 4x4 one.
Box breathing.
Yep.
There's so many, whatever you feel is going to work for you.
I'll never forget, I went about 15 years ago in one of my previous roles. I experienced my very first panic attack, and I, honest to God, thought I was having a stroke. And I'll never forget, I rang my mum at the time, and I'm like, Mum, I actually think I'm not gonna survive this. It was a whole out of body experience. And I remember I walked over, because my office was close to my doctor, and I walked over to my doctor, and I was just hyperventilating. I was a mess. I was like, and it was something I've never experienced as bad since, luckily. But the very thing he got me to do was he sat me in his room, and he left, and he gave me a brown paper bag, just like in the movies. And he said, I just need you to breathe into this and breathe out. And he came back about 10 minutes later, and I was almost a different human. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, that's such a simple tool and such a simple thing to try and remember can just change your whole day and the outcome of any bad situation. And so I think what you're saying here, deep breathing exercises, is just so, so, so critical in the workplace, as well as like your personal life, obviously. But in the workplace, we can get so overwhelmed by, like you said, just a simple email. And it's so important to, again, just pick one or two of these things and just remember, breathe. Take 5 seconds, breathe.
And what I love about what you're saying is that you're so heightened by that now, like, because you're very aware that can actually what that was. And there was a lot of people from hospital presentations. We see a lot of mental health presentations over physical health in EDs, and it comes to panic attacks, so people think they're having a heart attack. And it's amazing, like, our body requires oxygen. that is how we need to recycle the carbon dioxide out of our body. So even practicing, how am I breathing right now? Like, even that self-check-in, where we know that we can go outside and just take, we need to focus, we need to get some more energy. Taking a water bottle and 5 deep breaths outside in some fresh air will give you 100 times, I'm not too sure on the stats on this one, more energy than a coffee.
Absolutely.
So just remember that am I actually really tired? Am I not getting enough air and water? And that really does help with focus too. So again, a really small, easy one to do.
It's crazy how much it all goes back to, like you said, Neanderthal days, where it's fight or flight, breathing, water. Like, it's simple. It's so simple.
Yeah.
We've just got to remember to use those tools that we've known for eternity.
And I think that's where everyone, with well-being, I'm such a kiss girl in that way, is that well-being,
simple. Yeah.
It should not be overcooked. wellness is something, let's just keep that simple, and then you get the best effects, and you're more likely to continue doing that. But one of the big ones here, Christina, I think that this is a really hard one, is the practicing of self-compassion. And, you know, we do a lot of work around this where we can see.
Hoping you'd skip over this because this is my least.
Yeah, so it is for everyone. And I always ask, like, would you speak to your best friend the way you speak?
Absolutely not. No.
So it is so hard to change this, but even trying to, you know, put little bits of compassion in every night. Now, whether that is just saying, what are 3 good things that happened today? What's 3 good things I'm grateful for? What are 3 good things about me? Saying it in the mirror, reflecting on that before you go to bed. And neuropsychology, again, from a neuroplasticity perspective, 8 weeks of this shows that we can get different neural pathways to build up our positive psychology. So there is research around the importance of how you talk to yourself. And they even did this as a great Google, like if anyone Googled, was that at Google? I think it might have been at Google, where they actually had 2 plants, and it was at a university. They had 2 plants on either side of the campus, one where the students every day would say some great things to the plant, and then one where they just was giving criticism to this plant. And you have a look at the differences. The plant that was getting the positive praise actually flourished. The other plant died. So it actually shows about energy, like how much energy this will. There is an element there. It's. I'll find it and I'll send it around. I'll send it to you so you can send it around to the listeners, because I just think it's a great study just to even watch. And you know, again, I think that express emotions appropriately. Again, we're living in such a fast-paced environment where when we have got the fight or flight on, we're not going to be able to regulate as well. So try and finding healthy ways to express your emotions, like talking to a trusted friend. You know, that's what we do at EAP with Connect Psych Services, but even journaling and engaging in, you know, creative activities, or even physical play. You know, just go and shoot some basketballs. It's amazing how you can actually start to, you know, with a mate, you know, throwing some basketballs, having a chat, and seeing exactly what you can get out of that too. So incorporating the physicality with a, you know, a good discussion works wonders there.
Incredible. Now, last but not least, we have our resilience pillar. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So what we want to do with resilience is, the first off is that we really build some great supportive relationships with friends and families and colleagues, and what they can then do to provide emotional support, you know, during tough times. And this is, I think, we always know that crisis doesn't build character, it reveals character. So again, where you might find, hey, you know what, I thought they were in my corner, but then all of a sudden they're not there. So that's something just to kind of, we don't want people to get into that position where, you know, they're going through the crisis and they don't have that person around them. We want to be able to make sure that you've got the right people around you before anything that could, you know, a life event occurs, and then they're not there. Does that make sense? And that is probably, again, where active listening can be really helpful. And the way I like to look at active listening is that it's actively listening to yourself. So it is about, you know, when you have an interaction with people, you know, how does that actually make you feel when you're interacting with them? And are you actually changing your attitude to shift to theirs? Do you actually have the same belief systems? Now, sometimes it's really healthy to take stock of the people that are continually around you, and they might have been around you for years. Are they around you because you think that you're loyal, or are they around you because you're still getting the energy that you require, that usually, you know, in good friendships and relationships are reciprocated? And that's okay if it's not. Okay, so there's that 7-year itch is really what's built on it, as our cells rejuvenate from head to toe over 7 years because of our experiences, because of our different hormones, you know, because of different life events. Now, some people don't grow with you because they don't have the same life events. So we see this, you know, we see this in relationship breakups, but, you know, even in friendships, sometimes they're like, oh, I've been friends since I was 4. It's like, well, tell us what makes your friendship so important. And then they're like, because I've known them for so long.
That's it. Yeah.
No. commonalities are you having? Now that could be great. They could end up being a friend that, you might see every 6 months and catch up for a dinner. But if a crisis actually happened, would you call them? This is something it's a stock take, right? But you need to connect in with yourself to be able to do a really good stock take there. Looking at practicing optimism. So really trying to focus on the positives and maintaining that hopeful outlook, because, it's so difficult in that time where sometimes you can only see darkness, that there'll ever be light again. And, being able to, have those right people around you that are there to understand and, not tell you, oh, at least you've still got this, at least you've still got that. That's not what you need to hear right now. But being able just to allow yourself to build that mindset that, tomorrow is another day. Even though this is really hard right now, I know I'll get through this. It doesn't feel like that right now, but better days will come again. And you can't tell, there's no timeline on that for some people. And we know that through the grieving process, but it's being able, what research shows is that the individuals that show that level of optimism is that they can move through that grieving process that bit quicker. So that's something that, it's a hard one to practice now, but if you can then start to say, well, what's my self-talk like? Is it more so focusing on negative anyway? Or maybe I can start to flip that into the more positive. So I might start with that cognitive reappraisal.
It's also really hard, I find, for example, if somebody that you work with, so just bringing it back to a work experience, if somebody that you work with is going through a really difficult time and they can't see the light and they can't see anything optimistic happening in their peripheral vision, like they can't see it, but it's so important to try and not come across as the eternal optimist and be too optimistic, like you've got to try and find that happy medium, or be aware enough to find that happy medium to not be too over the top with positivity, because they won't receive it as that. They'll see you as nothing but annoying, I assume. And it could flip to the complete opposite of the intentions that you were setting in the first place.
Completely agree. So it does come back down to that social awareness, that EQ that you were talking about. And, is this person ready to hear this right now? Or can I just sit next to them and just have lunch and not say anything at all?
Yeah.
Right? Just give my energy. Or just write down a note, tomorrow is another day, and I love her. There's so many other ways that you can start to build up that optimism without actually using your voice.
One of the things my girlfriends and I do is, and it's taken us a long time to be able to do this, but when someone's having something shitty happen in their life or something bad's going on, they'll vent and they'll scream and they'll yell and stuff. And we will say, is this something you want advice on, or are you just venting and want us to listen? Yeah. Like, do you want us to respond with something, or do you just want us to be here for you? Like, you've got to be able to take on board that not every sentence that is spoken to you requires a response.
Absolutely. And you're so right, especially with Are You OK Day, literally next week. That's exactly the crux of it, is the active listening, is that some people just need to be able to say it how it is. And then what they would do is, because you're there just to listen and you're there with that support, is they will come to that conclusion themselves.
And feel safe from repercussions of expressing their truth.
It's no judgment. That's what we want.
Yeah.
For people. No judgment at all.
No.
Yeah. So, but look, that's a really great piece to then move into looking at maintaining that healthy lifestyle as well, because when we can try and actually prioritize our regular physical activity, so like a balanced diet and again sufficient sleep, what that does is it actually eliminates the stress response. So we can never overestimate that mind-body approach. When we eat calmer, we think calmer. We've got more, I've just gone blank on the neurons in our gut than we do in our brain. And so there's a lot of work that has been going now on for decades, like the psychobiotics.
It's the gut-mind axis, isn't it? The mind-gut axis, or whatever it's.
Yeah. It is. That's exactly it. And, being able to provide ourselves with certain ways to build up our microbiome has actually proven to have some really positive effects on our mental health. So rather than treating here, we treat in the gut. So that's something, and physical exercise is great, because think about it again, it's recycling that carbon dioxide, it's increasing the endorphins, and that then allows our happy hormones to come out, apart from the fact that we actually feel stronger. So yeah, always think that physical activity is very much connected to mindset and mental
And even
health.
if it's just as simple as parking 3 spots further away than what you usually would, going up the steps rather than the escalator, like just doing tiny little things that are going to make a little difference that accumulate over time. You might not notice them right now, but in 3 or 4 or 5 months' time, you're going to go, oh my God, I actually am feeling better.
The walking has actually got is the most underrated exercise you can do.
My favorite exercise.
It is. And I mean, how the clarity and, where you can walk, and it's free. So that's what I love about it as well. So yeah, now moving into, I know we're on a bit of a time limit, and I think that we could talk for hours. I'm sure we can. But embracing that change, accepting that change is part of life, learning to adapt by, again, using that cognitive flexibility, practicing that self-care. What can you do that recharges you? What are your hobbies? What's your relaxation techniques? What's your forest bathing or your time in nature? And being able to build up these mental and emotional reserves is, again, all part of that mental fitness. But, I think as well as to be able to build that growth mindset is learning on your experience from experiences. So reflecting on the past challenges and how you overcame them. That's what's, again, going to be able to bring that toolkit. Like, how did I get over this? Okay, right, this is what I did. Like just being able to come back to those problem solving. But I think as well, being able to seek support when needed, and, to break down that stigma. This is not a sign of weakness, and we all have these life events. And even if we don't have someone that is, because like a lot of our friends and our colleagues and everything, they're not trained practitioners, and we might require some extra help during that time for that situation, and that is okay, right? That is not, don't hesitate, because the more we can let it build up, the harder it is. Like it can grow itself and manifest, because then we can start having more unhealthy ways of coping with that scenario.
And as blunt as this might sound, it's not, the way that you're feeling is not unique. Like, you shouldn't feel alone in the fact that you're feeling the way you're feeling, if you are. Like, it's so many people feel the same, if not similar. And it's so important to understand that because you're in your own head doesn't mean that you're the only one there. Like,
Exactly.
you speak. Yeah, just I can't defend that as much.
The more we can speak, the more we process, the more
Absolutely.
we
can. One of the main things, just quickly, nothing I do is quickly anyway, set realistic goals. That to me screams, remember that, because I am a sucker for, yes, I'm going to do this 12-week challenge, and I'm going to do 7 days a week, and I'm going to do all of these things. And then I get to 3 days and I'm like, oh, I forgot one day. Better quit and burn this house and fly to Europe.
I did actually fall over that one, because I think that's a good one as well, is that breaking those larger challenges into more manageable.
I think if you take anything from this, set realistic goals and take 1 or 2 things only, and baby steps.
That's exactly it. And that's when and then being able to reflect on those little small changes is going to maintain that sense of accomplishment. And that's the way we can create the behavior change. And
it's such a tiered approach, isn't it?
A tiered approach, yeah. And you can see the product
absolutely.
That's what people actually really like as well, is to see the result as we go.
So before we wrap up, Nat, I can see so clearly, as you can tell by the way that I keep jumping in, I apologize.
Oh, no, I love it.
I'm so selfishly taking so much from today, guys. So I'm very happy. But what can we do to implement these 3 pillars of mental fitness into our workplace? Because I mean, that's why we're all here. We're working, we're stressed, everybody's overwhelmed, probably overworked, all need a Europe holiday. What can we do?
Well, I think we'll start with, cognitive flexibility. So when faced with challenges at work, practice trying to view situations from a different perspective.
Mm.
And this is what's going to then allow you to adapt to a change and come up with more innovative solutions, which is where we want all of our businesses to be. We always want to be ahead within our industry. And, just even encouraging those brainstorming sessions where team members can share diverse ideas and viewpoints and use different colored paper and, have that opportunity to bring your whole self, have really fun games that are creative, go to an offsite or go outside, finding different ways to utilize Lego or Play-Doh or, pitch and paint, which as you talked about before.
Mm.
Those are the kind of areas that are really going to start to encourage everyone to have a bit of fun, but to break down that stigma and be able to bring them their whole selves, warts and all, but also their ideas. And then you encourage all the ideas to be placed on the table, and then you as a collective come together, for that solution or that product. And that's so important. We can easily do that because you're bringing that diversity of thinking in.
Mm.
And then we look at the emotional regulation, in decision making. So, before making any of those big decisions, take a moment to assess your own emotional state. How are you feeling right now? And even if you need to go outside and, practice a breathing technique or go for a walk around the block, do some modern mindfulness, go and get lunch, whatever it is, you just want to be able to be in that self-regulation. So you're going to make the best decision appropriate in this time. And that really helps, especially with high pressure situations, because I feel that we put a lot of our own perspective that we need an answer instantly. Do we? Or can we actually come back to you within an hour with that answer? Like, don't be afraid to say that, like, great, you know what, I'm just going to have a bit of a think about it and I'll get back to you. It'll be in your inbox in an hour. Just take that time out, and that's going to lead to a more rational but then effective decision. And so that pause and reflect.
I guess if you're worried about not replying within an hour and you feel that urgency, literally reply to them straight away and say, I acknowledge, like, I've got your email, I'm thinking about it, I will get back to you shortly. I just need to take a little bit of time to think on it properly, or along those lines.
Yep, absolutely. Yes. And be honest.
Yeah.
Because the more honest we can be, then that's going to mirror and allow someone else to do the same thing. Gives some people, especially leaders, promoting open communication and empathy with your team. So encourage others to express their thoughts and feelings. And we need to practice active listening, as I said, a real core component of any of our compassionate conversations that we have. And we want to then also be able to create that psychologically safe environment, which is really the umbrella to minimize the risks of psychosocial hazards. So, one of those areas is that active listening, that open door, that level of communication where everyone feels safe to speak up there. And that can be done through regular check-ins with team members and creating opportunities for them to share any concerns, positively or negatively.
Absolutely.
So the more we can get, the more feedback loop we can create within an organization. Again, the better off they are and more productive you can be. So I'll leave it there. We've talked a lot about personal, but look, it was such a pleasure chatting with you. As I said, we could do it more and more.
God. I could talk for hours on all of this sort of stuff. I absolutely love it. I cannot thank you enough for joining us again. And again, thank you to everybody else who's joined. I know that we went a little bit over, but I will send out some more information about Connect Psych services, Connect Group services, about Natalie, about everything we've discussed today, as well as some little links and tips and tricks that you guys can look into as well. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of Nat when I say that she will be more than happy to chat to any of you should you need anything at all. Today, I have recorded this session, so I will pop it up onto our social media, our YouTube channel and our website as well. And I'll email it to everybody that has registered to join us today as well. So if you missed out or you had to skip out, not a problem. I will send that all through. And if you have any questions whatsoever, give us a yell. We'll be more than happy to chat. But again, thank you so much to everybody. We'll chat again soon.
Pleasure. Thanks, Christina. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day. See ya.
Bye.